Property insurance has been in the national media spotlight in recent weeks, likely more than it's ever been in the history of insurance. Hurricanes Helene and Milton, and now the LA wildfires, have surfaced issues into the public spotlight that have been brewing below the surface for many years. In the very first week of his second term, the sitting president of the United States visited hurricane victims in North Carolina and held a press conference on live television, where a fascinating exchange happened between the president and a North Carolina homeowner regarding their hurricane-related insurance claims. If this isn't an unprecedented moment in insurance history, I don't know what is. So let's watch and chat through the conversation briefly. For context, Franklin Graham with Samaritan's Purse opened the press conference, followed by some remarks from the president. And then a handful of North Carolina residents were invited to the microphone to share their stories. And here's where things get very insurance interesting.
Things are about to get interesting.
This gentleman stepped up to the mic and began to tell his story.
There was no way to escape because the water got so high. The only thing she could do was ride it out and wait till the waters came down. So we've been doing a little bit of battling with our insurance and FEMA. We did have proper insurance with flood insurance and homeowners insurance.
So unlike so many thousands of homeowners in the path of the devastating floodwaters, this family actually did have flood insurance as well as homeowners insurance. And that's a good thing. At least it should be. But here's where things begin to get less than ideal.
But since we had proper insurance, FEMA's not been able to assist us with a whole lot of things.
For clarity, FEMA guidelines indicate that in order for a disaster victim to qualify for FEMA assistance, they must either be uninsured, or if they do have insurance, they must provide a denial or settlement letter from their insurance carrier. In this particular case, the homeowner has insurance, both flood and homeowners, and neither insurer is denying coverage. So there's no denial letter and therefore no way to qualify for FEMA assistance. Now, before we jump into this next section, I want to qualify a few things.
This is important.
Indemnity insurance claims can be incredibly complex and nuanced, and no two claims are the same. There are a seemingly infinite number of variables and unique circumstances that can be present in any given claim. All that to say, in the best of circumstances, indemnity claims aren't easy. And in unprecedented catastrophic events, with tens of thousands of claims needing processing, the pressure and complexity is multiplied. With that being said, let's continue on, because this is where the President of the United States has dialogue back and forth with this policyholder regarding their insurance claims.
Again, we've been having some issues with trying to get some payout for our insurance in a timely manner. We had to do mold mitigation on our home, which is extremely expensive, before the structural engineer even came out in order to get our flood payout. And to me, that was not really acceptable.
So here's where things start to get tricky. And understand, we're getting very limited details here, but enough to make some informed conclusions and raise what I think are some valuable talking points. What this homeowner just described is not a terribly uncommon scenario. A catastrophic flood event occurs and the home sustains significant damage. Because thousands of homes have been flooded at the same time and resources are stretched thin, getting a structural engineer on site promptly can be extremely challenging. It sounds like in this case, a mold problem developed in the home. Again, not uncommon in these catastrophic scenarios. And this mold created a hazardous environment that had to be remediated before the structural analysis could take place to determine the full scope of damage and disperse a flood claims payment. And at this point, the president begins to ask some questions.
Insurance company been responsive or not really?
Not so much. Again,
Give you the money they have to give you?
I'm hoping so. And we need some assistance with that. We reached out to an attorney.
He ultimately asks for the name of the insurance company,
What's the name of the insurance company?
and how responsive they've been with the claims process. The president then asks if all insurance companies are slow in claims response, and the gentleman is quick to state that he's heard stories from others who have actually had very good claims experiences with the same company that he's insured with.
And I've heard some good instances.
And quite frankly, this was heartening to hear. It would have been very easy for him to join the chorus of voices unilaterally dunking on all insurance companies across the board, but he looks the president in the eye and tells the truth. I've heard some good instances of my company themselves, indicating that he's aware others have had positive claims experiences with the same insurer. He subsequently gives us a few more details on his specific claim, so listen to this.
The flood insurance is our primary insurance, and so there was roof leaks in the home that the inspectors found, the adjusters. Well, that contributed to us losing some of our personal property as it come in the third story where there's no, or second story living space, where the floodwater, well above the floodwaters.
So now we're getting a little clearer picture of this specific scenario, and anyone familiar with property insurance claims is nodding their head right now and thinking the same thing. Wind-driven rain versus flood.
Oh, not this again.
This is the dreaded combination that makes insurance carrier claims personnel shudder while public adjusters and the plaintiff's bar lick their chops.
If you've experienced any damage at your home, give us a call for a free inspection.
We could go very deep on this topic, but for the purpose of this conversation, let's keep things fairly simple. Since the 1920s, when most private insurers stopped offering flood coverage, the peril of flood has required homeowners to purchase a separate flood policy, in addition to a standard homeowners insurance policy that covers the other most common perils like wind, fire, theft, etc. So now we have two separate policies from two separate insurers covering the same house, but for different perils. What could possibly go wrong?
I think I know something.
Well, what goes wrong all too often is what this gentleman seems to describe. They have floodwater inundating the first floor of their home, while the same storm also has damaging winds that generate water intrusion into the second story from wind-driven rain. When the storm passes and the floodwaters subside, the claims get very messy. There's a flood damage claim and there's a wind-driven rain claim with separate insurers, and both claims include significant damage to the house and personal property. And circumstances can often make it very difficult and subjective as to which policy is responsible to cover which damage and loss.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Was all of the first floor damage caused by floodwater, or could some of the damage also have been caused by rain intrusion? There's very often questions of timing as well. Did wind-driven rain damage portions of a structure before floodwater further damaged or destroyed the same areas, or vice versa? And if so, how can that be proven, and which insurer is responsible to cover what damage? Is your head spinning yet? Because mine is.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
You can see how this can get incredibly messy. It can take way too long to sort out, and the potential for legal dispute is very high. All of that to say, despite insurance carriers' best efforts to settle catastrophic claims quickly and fairly, it can become extremely complicated and time and labor intensive to manage thousands of these claims at once. An argument could be made that we're way overdue to develop an all-in-one homeowners policy that includes the peril of flood to avoid all the messiness just described, but that's a conversation for a separate video.
We'll talk about that later.
In conclusion, the day after this live televised press conference with the president, Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri issued a scathing press release and letter to insurers, demanding data on denied claims in the wake of Hurricanes Helene and Milton, and asking them to appear under oath before a Senate committee. There is a lot to discuss there, but unfortunately, not enough time here, so stay tuned for that breakdown coming soon.
It'll be here before you know it.
As always, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below what I've gotten wrong in this analysis, or maybe you actually agree. Either way, let's keep the conversation going.